my 7-year-old, he has understood what death means at a really young age. He doesn't believe in killing anything unless you're going to eat it. All the anti-hunter has to do is put a picture of some Disney character that's a bear and be like, save the bears, and boom, they got him. Our marketing has to be a lot better, and the way we go about it needs to be a lot better. Oh, don't get me started on that. This expo is already starting to rub me the wrong way. I might as well just come out and say it so I can vent a little bit. Get all the mistakes done on the cheap tags, over-the-counter stuff or whatever. Then when the real tag comes in, you're ready to go. You're ready. I'm choosing my fights, but I definitely want to pick some more fights. I'm fighting for my sons to be able to hunt when they get to that age. That's where it comes down to. This is Samson, and you're listening to The Wild Initiative.
Put down your latte and pull on your boots.
I've been blessed to harvest 22 of the 29 North American animals with my bow.
My personal 24-hour record for death threats is 88.
They will start putting 2 and 2 together and realize this is how you call bulls in.
So when I go hunting now, that's the ethos I take with me. Whatever this hunt's going to throw at you, you pull your big girl pants up and you get on with it.
Giant bucks are freaking awesome. They're beautiful. But you know what? I would not trade this first buck for anything in the world.
So I'm a geek. Magicians and dragons and magic swords. I kid you not, man. I'm the biggest dork in the gun business.
I'm Freddie Hartice, Hollywood Hunter.
This is Aaron Snyder.
Hey, this is Trevin Stoltzfus with Outback Outdoors.
This is Rihanna Carey.
Hi, this is John Stallone of the Interviews with the Hunting Masters.
You're listening to The Wild Initiative.
Hey y'all, welcome to another episode of The Wild Initiative, brought to you as part of the Waypoint Podcast Network. All right, y'all, so hopping into today's episode, I'm here in Salt Lake City, Utah, Western Hunt Expo, so you guys can expect to hear a lot more background noise in the next several podcasts, because you guys know how much I love to record out here. But after 5 years, this March will be 5 years for the podcast, he is back. Episode number 2, the podcast that really turned this into a hunting podcast from back in living country in the city days. But Samson, we're here.
We're back. It makes me. It doesn't seem like it was that long ago. So it's good to be back.
It's weird because it seems like it doesn't seem like that long ago, but at the same time, it seems like a different lifetime as well.
Sure. Yeah.
It's like a weird thing, coming in and. I remember talking to you about starting it's like, because I came in and we're eyeballing each other like across the meeting room, like mm-hmm. you're wearing a Kuiu puffy or something, and I'm sitting there with a real tree cover on my laptop, and I'm like, okay, I got to go talk to this guy. I gotta like suss him out a little bit, but I'm like, it's the music industry and we run a vegan music festival, so I gotta be a little tactful as to whether or not, how I approach this. So I remember walking into your office, you're on the phone or something, you're talking with someone, and I kind of look, I'm like, okay, how do I approach this guy? And then all of a sudden, I see the elk bugling on your screensaver. I'm like, okay, that's good. Then it swaps to the next photo of like diagrammed out cuts of meat. I'm like, okay, I think I'm fine to talk to this guy.
Those are the signals I need to put up just so people know. It keeps the people away that I don't want to talk to, and then it sucks in the people that I want to actually have conversations with.
Yeah, and shoot, we talked for like 2 hours at that point. You put me on a podcast to listen to and gear to check out, and you put me on to Elk 101 at the time, and like all of these different resources.
Yeah. And that was I think Corey was just launching that too. So that was it was
I think it was like the second
new
year of it or something. Like it was.
But when he really started to push it out, and then that's when I got a little bit more involved and was just trying to help him with his website and everything else. But it's kind of weird how everything kind of collided.
Oh yeah. Well, and really, so you're the. I was getting into hunting, but I genuinely blame you for all of this.
Okay. Well, I was going to say it's probably my fault.
So it really is.
Yeah. I didn't pursue you and stalk you and make you a hunter, but I could have been somewhat of the catalyst. I definitely didn't tell you not to do it.
You opened a few doors for me, and you pointed at the other doors I needed to go through and figure out. Like, and everyone's got their, like, a different way they've gotten to hunting, and that's part of what I love asking people on the podcast, like, from day one. How did you get introduced to hunting? What's your story behind it? Because it's so different with everyone. And then, some people, they've got, like, a mentor they hunt with through, blah, 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 all this, through the rest of life. It was different. Like, you didn't take me out hunting and, like, okay, this is how you shoot a bow, but you told me how to figure that stuff out. Which, and there's also a big difference, me coming in my mid-30s versus, somebody you're starting as a youth. But, yeah, it's all your fault. All your fault.
So be it.
All of this money I've spent, do you know how rich I would be?
No. You would have spent it on something else and then not have anything for it.
Yeah, I'd probably still be working in the music industry.
Yeah, probably.
Oh, man.
You'd still be in L.A. See, exactly. So I helped you out. You're welcome.
Sorry, I feel like I need to brush my teeth now.
Right?
No, but I mean, it's been quite a few seasons. The first disastrous elk season that I think everyone's that listened to this podcast.
Well, you had to get that out of the way.
Yeah.
Everybody has, like, somewhat of a disaster. Normally it's with, like, their vehicle or something, but, some people cut themselves, drop arrows.
Some people knees break down.
You went for it, double. What'd you do? Both knees, right?
Both knees, yeah.
Both knees.
Yeah. The second day was the first knee. Third day was the second knee. And, they're just a little overworked. I can push through it.
Yeah.
Yeah, not so much. Not so much at all, but...
Yeah. I remember the first conversation I remember after you got up there was that there's no elk, there's wolf tracks, and my battery and my battery packs are almost dead. And it just and every message was like, I'm at this percentage, and then I'm at this percentage, just going. It was that could have been a podcast in itself, just kind of the play-by-play. The one thing is, it's good you didn't go up there just without telling anybody, because the fact that you that's one thing I'm glad you listened on. Start a group message, get people involved. That's something that I solo hunt 99% of the time. I scout with other people, or sometimes I've camped with other people. I'm hunting by myself, but I've evolved into, like, a written hunt plan. I've dropped it off at the sheriff's station. I've hunted where I have the sheriff on my, texting back and forth, where he'll text me like, hey, I haven't heard from you in 4 days. You good? And I'm like, I'm tagged out. I'm already on my way home. But it does make a big difference. I mean, satellite messaging has changed the confidence level. And then, like, I think a lot of people that have, other halves, their spouse, their girlfriends, boyfriends, whoever it ends up being, before, when you had no communication, they lose their mind. And, going hunting was always like that, that fake smile of like, oh, you're going to enjoy yourself. But they were always like terrified that you're going to get stuck out there.
Yeah.
Which, when you did get stuck out there, vehicle stuck, you blow out your knees, whatever it is, before we had that, you were stuck, and it might take a while. I think now people have that, they have a little bit of security, but I think that it's almost a false sense in some ways. Like, they just think that I'm going to pick up an inReach or a Go Zero or something similar, and I'm good. Well, you could lose that, or that could blow out everything else. If no one knows where you're hunting, then,
it's like that's just
you have to have somewhat of a network. And it was great because you had somebody on the Montana side. We had a couple people on the Idaho side. And, then you have my wife, or girlfriend at the time, she was just like control center. She was trying to figure out where everybody was, mitigate, figure out like, okay, where exactly is he, and, does he do we need to come from the Montana side, that kind of stuff. But having that support, that if you have that kind of support system, then you almost can just go for it every single time. You just go
that inReach,
just go.
That inReach is a tool. It's a great tool, but unless you know how to use your tool effectively, it's not going to do you any good.
Yeah.
I could have that inReach and I could reach out to people, but if I don't have the correct people in place to reach out to who are prepared to come help me, I could have been stuck out there for another 4 days, which, I would have been fine. I had enough stuff for that. But, that's not always the case. You're planning to be out for a 5-day hunt, and, you blow out your leg on, day 4, and you've got to wait, another 3 days before it's clear enough or something happens, before somebody can come in and get you, whatever that happens to be, you're going to be in.
Plus, I mean, you had the
spot.
You had the trifecta. I mean, you had the bad weather, you had the blowdowns. You were far in there.
And I'm not sure if I released. I took this Zoom. I took it back there with me. I took it up with me. Know that. And every night before I would crash out for the night, I'd sit and I'd just record. The first night I probably sat and I recorded for like half an hour. Mm-hmm. I just talked. But then every night it was about 10 to 15 minutes. And episode 200 is that audio. I had Clayton Markser came back on, and we did like a little intro for it.
Oh, that's cool.
And then I had my editor clip together all that audio. And that is one of... So I don't listen to my own podcast. Like, I sat and had the conversation.
Yeah, I get it.
Like, why am I going to listen to it a second time?
You were there.
Yeah, I was there. I actually went back and listened to that, and it brought back some... I mean, you can hear, like, my mood, my attitude. Like, it's a very interesting podcast. Like, you get kind of insight into where my brain was that you wouldn't get any other way. And it was really cool for me to listen to that again and just think about where I was. Because now I look at that hunt, and for the other stuff I've done, I'm like, oh, that wouldn't be that big of a deal. Like, going into that hunt now, because I'd be prepared differently. I have different gear. I understand how to be more prepared for that, and I probably wouldn't be that stupidly far from my truck again without knowing there's elk there.
I mean, without getting guides aside, because I know that the learning curve goes almost away if you're going to pump $20,000 into a hunt, and they're going to do a lot of stuff for you. You go past that learning curve. Aside from that, though, you can only tell. You can ask until you're blue in the face, and you can only tell people so much. There's just a certain level you have to experience, and that's like you said. Now it's like you've experienced other hunts now. Then going back to there, you're gonna rethink the whole way of doing it. You're not going to throw a bunch of stuff in your bag thinking just in case I need this or just in case I need that. And it's, like my pack has shrunk over time. I mean, I literally, I went on a hunt where I didn't even pull half the stuff out of my car. I mean, I literally it just stayed in the vehicle, and I was like sleeping on the ground. I was like moving around so much. I'm like, why am I going to set up a tent if I'm just going to, go? And but you just you learn over time, and that's the whole part of it. Like going back now, you're going to feel like way more comfortable. That was that's like getting dropped off on an island, and when you've never done into survival school, kind of thing, and you're just like, all right, well, let's see what happens.
And that's one thing I've learned too from that is less in the pack, more in the truck. Yeah. Like I pretty much grab all of my bins of hunting gear that I have. They all go in the truck. I lock it down and I tie it up, and so people hopefully don't F with it very much.
You just cross your fingers and go.
But after that experience, the one thing I learned is like, okay, you can plan, in late August, early September for it's going to, all the weather says it's going to be nice and warm and sunny. 2 days later, it can be zero visibility with snow just shitting on you. Yeah. And if you're out there with a tarp tent and and no insulation layers, you're screwed. Yeah. But if you can get back to the truck, you don't have to cancel your hunt. You don't have to go back home.
Yeah.
And that was one thing, I've just learned that a lot is committing less to areas, just having all my gear in the truck. What does it hurt to have an extra bin in the back of the truck? Nothing.
Yeah. A lot of times I even, my last 5 or 6 hunts, I tried to get there at least a couple days early, and that's made a huge difference. It has screwed up a couple of my hunts where I've shot the animal on the first day. Done that a few times now, so it's like hunt's over instantaneously.
It's like quote unquote scred up. It's like you harvest, but you didn't really get the hunt.
There's both sides of the coin. There's people that pass on a lot of animals because they want to be out there in the woods and be out there a lot. But and then there's the other person on your shoulder saying, shoot that buck or shoot that elk. Because You've scouted for 3 days already. You kind of know what's in the area anyway. And then on the opening day, you see this either a buck you've been watching or something bigger than everything you've been watching. And it might not be something huge, but maybe it is. And you're just like, that's the biggest buck I've seen in 4 days now. I'm going to pull the trigger on that. And then you can't experience and be out all the time, it's kind of a double-edged sword. So, I think I think the people that want to be in the field a lot, maybe they should camp more, I guess, But you can go out and watch animals anytime. Some people think that, a lot of people, they only do it when they hunt. They do it maybe during their scouts, but, they really only, what's preventing you to go to that unit the same way? Less the tag. You're saving $1,000 probably, but you could still drive 1,000 miles, go to an area, watch the animals for a while, or go in the winter range
for elk,
and glass, for 5 days and then come home. Now you got it in. Now you can go back out there and shoot one on the first day.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of in between. I guess I kind of, when we talked last, we talked about times where I would go to areas and hunt, especially in California, where I was one of the only hunters, if not the only hunter in the area, and there was a lot of other vehicles, a lot of Subarus, lots of Subarus. Which I don't have a problem with Subarus because I think it's the perfect camouflage. You pull up to, if you use your Subaru as your hunting vehicle, no one knows that you're hunting that area. So, unless you have a bunch of stickers all over it, and it kind of gives it away. But
you just got to put like a Biden or a Bernie sticker on the back.
Yeah, exactly.
There,
Bernie 20 whatever. The guy lives forever. But use it. There was times where I just knew, I would get up there and use hikers and joggers and all these people that, we'd see in the mountains and around Los Angeles or Southern California, and I would just use them to the advantage. I mean, when you watch them, the deer are so used to them that if you if you sneak up on a deer in that area, they're going to take off. If you just walk up to them like everybody else does, they just kind of stand there and then bam, it's over. So it kind of depends on where you're at and, what type of advantages you want to take. But, it's a different world in different places. Colorado's the same way. Hunting Colorado, depending on how close you are to Denver, you can almost do it the same way. You can literally walk right. If you walk pretty aggressively, like you're out exercising, doesn't matter if you're in camo and you're carrying a rifle. That deer's just that's not really a threat. It might not even run away versus you trying to sneak up on him.
Yeah,
and you're going, you're moving at
sense.
You have your boots off and you're walking at Matrix slow motion. That deer knows something's up, takes off. So
yeah, well,
because they're just the little things you kind of pick up on over time.
Used to picking up those cues from their natural predators. From whether it's a coyote or a wolf or a mountain lion, whatever.
Yeah, the mountain lion, a coyote, everything else is going to sneak up on them versus just trot right in.
Well, and especially if it's a mule deer, they'll walk 10 feet away and then turn back and be like, huh.
Yeah, except for maybe a coos deer. I don't think you can get away with those are the crackheads of nature.
I still haven't gotten down to see them. I've chased muleys, plenty of times. I've got my javelina down there, and we discussed. I screwed up my Arizona tag draw this year because I'm special and I got busy.
Screwed up or just missed it. Yeah.
I got busy up until it, so I didn't get it done ahead of time. I was like, okay, I need to do I want to do my research. You got to double check what unit I want to put in for, figure that all out. Got busy. I'm like, oh crap, I got the alert email from Go Hunt, from Arizona Fish, from 3 different websites. Send me an email saying, hey, draw. So you're going to miss your tag draw, idiot.
Yeah. And it's always the day before, too. They send those out
so it's before. the evening before, and so it's your last chance.
Or morning
tomorrow,
sometimes, yeah.
And I'm like, okay, shoot, all right. I got to do that tonight. Got to finish up. I was finishing up some client work, and I sit down on the couch. I'm going to do it, and I just crash out hard, and I pretty much wake up, early the next morning, and I didn't even remember at that point. It wasn't until the next day. I'm like, no. So hopefully I'm going to call them up. I don't know if Arizona will let me buy points afterwards or anything.
Yeah, probably not. No, they won't actually. I have an interesting story for Arizona. So during 2020, I didn't put in. I did completely. Not that I forgot. I was so busy with other things. Plus the pandemic going on. It completely. I mean, I missed that entire month.
Yeah.
I was that far off. I never even thought of it until it was months away, and then I get a call from. I get a phone call. I get a voicemail, and it's from Arizona that somebody turned in their tag for an elk tag, and it fell on the same time that I had a wedding to go to.
Oh.
And I was just sitting there debating, okay, how far is it? Can I make it? Can I do the hunt first and then make it to the wedding, or can I do the wedding and then maybe I do the wedding in camo and just bail out and go straight there and drive all night and maybe make it like the last couple days, but I wouldn't be able to scout. I wouldn't be able to see it. Total different an area like the Payson area right under the Mogollon Rim. It was like a 22 north tag. I've never even been that. I've never done that area, so I was just like, that would probably just be a big waste of time. And I would piss off a lot of people. So I called the lady back, and I'm like, I can't take this tag. She's like, why not? I explained it to her, and she's like, man, I would not like to be in your shoes.
Yeah.
Like she literally, and she even called me back like 2 days later, and she's like,
are you sure?
This is gonna go back. You sure? And I was like, yeah, I'm sure. I was so bummed. So
that's heartbreak.
It was it is what it is.
Well, and I drew my I drew my Arizona tag in 2020 as well, and finally got it done. 4 years.
Cool.
Getting closer and closer, and 2019 in Montana in Montana was incredible. I got into them. I finally located elk. I was in them just about every day. I just couldn't quite get it figured out. But man, you want to talk about learning on a hunt? Because it's you learn a lot when you screw up. Like you learn more. From screwing up
if you pay
successful.
attention. Some people just keep screwing up.
Yeah,
but if there's nothing wrong with failing, screwing up on stuff as long as you learn from it.
As long as you step back,
you learn more by actually doing it.
Yeah.
And not, if you don't succeed or you don't, there's so much stuff. You're like, okay, this is how they think, or this is what they do. Mm-hmm. That kind of stuff. You definitely just watching them.
But it's like there's only so much you can learn then without a little bit of success. Because it was getting to the point where I was like, I'm doing all this stuff, and I don't know if I'm just in the wrong place. I was finding out plenty of stuff not to do, but I wasn't finding enough success to figure out where to go from there.
Got it.
That was the struggle I was having. And once I finally got into elk, found a spot, I was like, all right, some people, the game warden recommended this spot. One of the guys at the coffee shop recommended this spot. It's a little piece of state land. All right, I'm going to go check it out.
Yeah.
I go check it out. I'm like kind of hiking in to get in, go up to a glassing spot early in the morning. I'm like, I'm just going to look over this hill, kind of glass my way in a little bit, look over this hill, and it's just covered with elk. And I'm like, oh. And I go to get in, and they were everywhere on this first day.
It's actually worse because there's just more eyes now.
Yeah, and it was I was spooking them left and right, but I was learning how much I can move, how quiet I have to be, what I have to do. There's a couple of, and it's I got distracted.
With elk, you almost don't have to be quiet at all.
Yeah.
Really. Yeah.
And I got distracted by this little bachelor herd of satellite bulls that was together. It was actually I think I referenced it in my podcast after that hunt. I did a solo one, but it was weird. It was these three satellite bulls and then one cow, and I'm like,
hey, call them in.
Town bicycle.
Yeah.
She's the bit of a hoe.
She gets around.
She definitely gets around. But yeah, so I got super distracted by them and kind of forgot about the giant herd that was probably more accessible. But these ones were right there. It's kind of bird in the hand. And I ended up chasing them over the next ridge.
Yeah.
But I learned a ton. And every day I was getting into them, I was learning more, getting closer. And I couldn't quite seal the deal. But something would always happen. I'd be going through a spot where they never were in the past, and you learn. You're like, well, just because they weren't there in the past doesn't mean. Yeah. And I could have closed the deal if I had been paying attention and changed my strategy a little bit and had seen this bull. There was this big old satellite bull there, and I have video of him walking past me at 100 yards. He knew something was wrong. Because I got in, I'm just kind of tromping my way in. It was the beginning. I was 250, 300 yards from my truck. Like, it was kind of up, and so you can't see the truck from where I'm at, but it's this wide open area, just flat until you get to the fence line. You cross the fence line, and you get up into the trees. And just tromping in, I'm like kind of making sure my gear's settled on my pack, and I just hear something. I look up, and there's just a big old bull, like 250 yards, just staring right at me. And it's dark. It's it's before daylight. And so I'm like, I freeze, and I'm just standing there. He's staring. He knows something's off, but then he goes back to feeding. So I drop down, and I drop the pack, and I start belly crawling. And it snowed. It's like I'm on my hands and knees. Say again?
Rifle or archery? Huh?
Archery. So I had my bow with me. If it was rifle, he would have been dead in about 2 seconds.
Yeah.
No, in that section, it borders private, and come rifle season, the ranch hands run the fence lines and drive the elk off the very illegally. They drive onto the public land.
Yeah.
And, thank you to the Wilkes brothers for that. Not bitter at all. But I digress. But yeah, so I'm like belly crawling. I got my bow, and I'm like in the snow. I'm losing feeling in my knees and hands, and but I'm getting in, and like he'd put his head down, and start feeding, so I'd crawl, and then he put it up and look, and I got in a ways, probably to maybe I probably got 100 yards in on him. Got into moved in 100 yards, probably to about 150 yards on him, something like that, and he starts feeding towards me. I'm like, oh, hell yes. I'm like 400 yards from my truck. This bull's going to walk straight to me, and I'm going to plug him. Like, the wind was perfect. It was, like, angling across me. The sun was in his face. Like, I'm like, or the sun was coming up, like, right in his face. And I'm like, this is perfect. And then just decides, no, I'm going to start feeding this other. He gets into about 100 yards from me. He's like, no, I'm going to start feeding this other direction, and just kind of maintains this 90 to 100 yards from me, and I can't move. Like, there's no cover. If I even shift my body weight, like, he's up and looking at me like something's off. And so finally he just moves far enough past me to catch my wind and takes off. But
sucks.
It was the closest at the time.
They know. It's like, I swear they know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. The minute you think you got them, you don't. It's very rare. Like, it is very, very rare to where, I mean, it does happen, but where just every single, you could just check off the boxes.
Yep.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you're done. It rarely happens that way.
No, it's...
My Utah hunt was like that. It was my Utah deer hunt, Zion, this few months back. It was scouting, was perfect. I overlaid migration patterns over, Google Earth, and then went out and got to those areas, and they were a pain in the butt to even get to, but I found these, where two migration patterns kind of cross. Found a lake that was near it. The lake ended up being dried out, and then there was a smaller lake that wasn't even on the map, which made it even perfect because a smaller water source. I would see 200 deer a day, and I didn't see one other hunter the whole hunt. And I was only in a mile and a half from the road, and I didn't see anybody because everybody hunts this where they actually kind of come out and get dispersed. And it was like clockwork. I saw it for 3 days, watched this one spot, kept seeing these deer come through, and I saw the migratory deer just kind of keep going, and then there's some deer that just stay. Like, it seems like the bigger bucks just want to hang out. They'll get to an area and they'll just stay there for a few days. Mm-hmm. And then opening day, 2 bucks that I was watching, one of them walked out. It was, first light was around 7 o'clock, and like at 7:15 I pulled the trigger on him. And it was done. And then, by 10, everything was back. That deer was in the Yeti. I mean, it was literally in there, and I was cleaning up and making something to eat. And I was like, I even sat back like, I got, take this one, because it never happens that way. It's never like, it's always like they come out, they go back, I played cat and mouse for 6 days, twice. I went out twice. I had a tag in Idaho. And I was playing cat and mouse with these elk. I mean, I knew where they were. I knew where to get. Like, once they went up they would come to the ag fields at night, and I knew which direction they were going. There's 2 different directions they come in and out. I knew where they were. There was nights where I was out there. I'd go out there in the middle of the night and just kind of see where they were, and they would be on the fields. There was nights where they came off the ag field in the middle of the night, and they were completely surrounding me. I mean, I had a bull I could probably reach out and touch him. He was about 1.5 feet from me, and he came by. I mean, just the smell of him was like pungent. And it was a full moon. I mean, you could see them. They were just moving past. They did not care I was standing right there. I just froze up. They just walked right past me. The whole herd. I mean, they didn't even go up the hills. They just kind of went out into the BLM where I was, and then they went right back onto the ag fields. They did this big loop. I thought I had them pegged, and then, then it just turned into this cat and mouse. One day they would come down this side, so the next day I'd be over there. They'd come down the other side. But I could see them. I mean, 30, 40 head would come down right off the bat, usually cows and calves, and then the bulls would like kind of peek over the hill, and then they would come down. So and then the next day I would go back, and they were on this side, and then they didn't show up one day, and I'm like, where the hell are they? So I sat there and waited, and then they just appeared on the field. And what they were doing is they were hitting this like sand, little wash. They'd literally come down the hill and they'd take that wash in. You wouldn't even see them. It was right next to the road. It was literally right next to the road. And they were down in there deep enough to where they could just single file right through there, and they just popped up into the ag fields. Thought I had them pegged the whole time. It was just constant. I didn't get a shot off until, the second hunt on the second time I went out, and pretty much the last day. But, man, drove me nuts. I thought I had them pegged. But that's what happens.
Well, I mean, you're talking earlier about that water hole, that kind of smaller water hole you found, and you're saying, what, 1.5 miles off the road?
Yeah, but very inaccessible. Like break your car inaccessible.
Yeah, but it's funny because, you got me started on the Randy Newberg school. Like, you got me listening to too much Randy Newberg.
No such thing. There's no such thing as too much.
This is true, but for a new hunter, you listen to too much Randy Newberg, and suddenly you're like, I've got to be 7 miles in from the nearest road.
Hey, he shot a bison here in Utah, and it almost landed in his truck. So if anybody's ever seen that episode, go watch, or if you haven't, go see it. He shoots at Henry Mountains, and it runs to his truck like a dog, and dies right next to it, like right next to the road. So
that's what I thought I was going to get with that elk. I was like, shoot, this thing's going to walk to me maybe 400 miles.
Might as well just hand him the keys to your truck.
Yeah,
you're like, all right, jump in the back. Let's go. Yep, trained elk.
Oh my gosh, yeah, man, it's weird just thinking about that, all of that progression, and then this last season I just didn't get out. That was disappointing, but
it's going to happen. I mean, you got to remember, I took over 10 years off.
Yeah.
I mean, work got in the work, family, everything just kind of, I fished instead of hunted. And at first I didn't think anything of it. It was like, okay, when I there wasn't a lot of draws. Everything was over the counter, the first time around. And, California deer tags are you just go to Big Five, pick them up, and just go. You do it when you want to go hunting. You don't even do it ahead of time. Not now where you have a spreadsheet and all the draws and everything else. But I took a long time off, and then I just kind of slowly. I had probably eased back into it, but I got that bug of hunting season. I mean, I've hunted since I was 6. Something. I was always hunting some snakes or whatever it was. But
dairy cows.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I forgot about that. I did tell you about that.
that was one of the best stories.
I assassinated a cow when I was 6. I was almost 7. That was right before I came to California. I was in Texas, and I
that was on the res, right?
Cow. So yeah, it was on the res, and but that was the door opener. That was the catalyst, because my punishment for that was that I had to go to the person that owned the cow, the rancher. Well, the rancher came to the house, and he knocked on the door, and he was like, one of my, cows are dead, kind of thing. My parents were like, whatever. My stepbrothers at the time, they just instantly knew it, because I scoped myself really, really good.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
I mean, a 6-year-old with 30-06 could barely even get it up, let alone, I'd had drug it out, put on barbed wire fence, pulled trigger, and, cocked myself in the eye bad. I mean, they walked in, they were probably 16, 17 at the time. I mean, the minute they saw my eye, they opened the closet door, grabbed the rifle, and saw that, and, I pulled the trigger, that was it. I didn't even know it was going to go off. But I had the cow in the scope, I was like looking at it, and I pulled the trigger, and yeah. So I had to help him gut that thing and clean that thing. I mean, luckily I didn't have to do it out in the field. He took it in with a tractor, but I don't remember most of it. I was so young, but my cousin's stories are pretty vivid, and they're like, man, you were throwing up, and I guess I threw up a few times, and he had me like literally reaching in where I would like disappear, and I was like pulling stuff out. And I guess he really like, I guess he wasn't trying to be mean at all, but he was really trying to teach a little kid, like, look, this is how we do it. This is, yes, it was somewhat of a punishment, but in reality, like, once I got done kind of throwing up and got over the smell and everything else, they said that something clicked to where I was just like, I was ready to go.
Yeah.
So from that point on, I mean, anytime a chicken or a rabbit needed to get killed at the house, because we had over 100 rabbits.
Yeah.
And I don't even know how many chickens we had. I didn't even count it. But anytime something had to get, dispatched for food or dinner that night, that was me. And I was out the door. I mean, the minute I got a green light, I was out the door. And then I was, neighbors or, anybody else. So, it was just kind of instilled. But, yeah, that cow had it coming somehow.
It's, it's one of those things like, I'm going to be getting chickens and rabbits and probably some goats too. And just so I've, some more, especially this season, I don't have Jack in the freezer.
Yeah.
I'm just polishing off the last of my elk, and that's about it. And I'm going to be getting some animals and raising them, but it's so important for kids to, you want to teach someone to respect the value of life,
yeah. Well, they just understand. See, a good point of that. My 7-year-old, he has understood what death means at a really young age, and not to be in like a morbid way, but to the point of, he understands, like, if something's alive or something's dead, he doesn't believe in killing anything unless you're going to eat it. There was a situation at school. We get a call from the principal and the teacher that he was chasing this girl around with a bee. Well, the story came out that she killed the bee. The bee, she smacked the bee with her shoe. He picks it up, chases her with it. You got to eat this. So, it's really kind of awkward explaining this. The principal, I mean, this is Yorba Linda, California.
Yeah.
The Orange County, California. So, not a lot of hunters running around. Luckily, the teacher comes from a hunting background. Her parents hunted. She comes from, out of the state. She totally got it. She thought it was funny. Principal, completely mortified. Luckily that the teacher was there to calm her down
to kind of balance
it out to where she was like okay with it, and she's like, okay, I got this. But he is very, very in tune with that. It's very, he gets that. Okay, that's cute and cuddly or whatever, but if you shoot it, we're eating it. He gets that, and there's times where I'll bring stuff home and he's in the backyard, and we had an elk in the backyard. I mean, it's a suburban neighborhood in the middle of Orange County, and I have game bags hanging from the back porch. But it is what it is, and it seems to work. But he totally gets that, and he understands that, and he wants to hunt, and he wants to like that last deer I brought. He helped me skin the head. We skinned the head for a Euro mount, and he was back there, trying to get around the antlers and everything else, and we ate the heart that night, and he was stoked on that. Now he only cares about the heart of the animal because he liked it so well, so now he's calling dibs on the next animal. He's like, I get the heart. I went to...
That's actually what I still have left for my elk. Is
how?
I saved
that would be the first thing I would eat.
It's because
the tongue and the heart is the first thing I would eat.
So I have it ready for tacos. I've got it sliced up really nice for tacos, and I just haven't done it yet because I want to have somebody over. I want to
special.
I don't know. And that's my thing is I'm down low enough on meat now to where it's like
it's a
just
little meat, whatever's there.
A lot more precious.
Got it. Got it.
So I'm kind of like, okay, I want to. I'm being a little more choosy with what I make with the wild game stuff.
Yeah.
And
organs go first. I usually eat the tongue, which is on an elk. A tongue battles for me. The tongue is right up there with the tenderloins. It's
really.
It would be like a choice. If I could have the same amount of weight, if somebody told me you got 30 pounds of tongue versus this 30-pound tenderloin, I might go the tongue route sometimes. I just love it. I grew up eating that. The cow tongue, it's just amazing. But the 3 elk tongues, I think 3 or 4 I've eaten were just been amazing. Even the mule deer tongue was great. So I know it's kind of weird and it's not like a normal thing, but And then the hearts and the livers and everything else. But the heart is amazing. If I ever draw or even go with somebody on a bison hunt, like the tongue's going to be one of those. Like here, I'll help you pack this thing out. I just want that tongue.
Just give me the tongue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So kind of a weird thing, but
no, I remember when my nephews were up visiting. It was like when I got my turkeys a couple of years ago. I was up in Northern California, and I think I've told the story on here a couple of times, but it was like the most Elmer Fudd. Both turkeys were like the most Elmer Fudd shit. Like the first one, I was down I was warming up for a morning workout. Like I was going to do my morning workout, and I was doing like yoga or something. I was in a pair of gym shorts, barefoot, and a t-shirt, and I get a text message. There's turkeys in the driveway. And, I'd been watching them, and I knew exactly where they were going. And, all adjoining plots of land, I got permission to go hunt. So I throw on my Crocs, and I just haul ass two
awesome.
Properties over. And I post up, full post up Elmer Fudd behind a tree. And I was waiting, and they come across, finish going, leave the driveway, come across the next property. Right as they come across the next property, he pops out. And he's in his robe with his coffee, and he goes to the mailbox, and he's like, "Oh, turkeys!" And he's just standing there watching them. I'm like, "Come on!" And they were still kind of coming my way. He didn't scare them away, but I'm allowed to hunt there, but I also don't want to just blow away the turkeys that he's sitting there admiring with his coffee in the morning. And I'm trying to at least be considerate.
Yeah.
So I'm waiting. He finally goes back in, and they come, and I pop out from behind the tree, and I blow away the one with. He had a good size. I mean, he was probably 3.5. He had a good. It was I think 10.5-inch beard.
Oh wow.
So it was a decent sized beard. So I'd done that, and I'd made. I don't know. I'd made something what did I make from that? That's going to bug me. I can't remember. But yeah, I made something out of that, and my nephews came up the next week. They were up visiting. The whole family was up, and I'm like, I want them to experience. I was going to try and do it the quote-unquote right way, and go call and sit in the camo. And I heard it. I was going into my office. I'm in a bright red T-shirt and a pair of board shorts and flip-flops. I mean, it's California. And I hear a gobble on the other side of the property, and I'm like, screw it. And so I grab my shot. I'm like, my nephews are there. I want them to experience that. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go nail this other turkey. And this was the full-on Elmer Fudd, crouched over.
And wabbits.
And it was a full-on I went from the side-by-side and then snuck behind the chicken coop and then hid behind the lawnmower tent.
Do any rolls?
And I just about, man. And then I found out where they were, and I kind of popped out from behind the chicken coop and just boom. And
wow.
And so I gave them he was a shorter beard, and so I've got the beard actually hanging from my rear view mirror. Along with the spurs from that one, and then I gave the fan to my nephews. And I just went to visit them for Thanksgiving, and they've still got it hung up in their room, which is really cool to see. But it's getting to introduce them to that, because then they came and they went and processed the whole thing. I walked them through processing the whole thing. I almost chopped off my finger. I lost probably about a quarter to half an inch of fingertip. It was real close to the bone.
Yeah.
Because I was teaching and not paying attention to where my knife was. But yeah, I got him to walk through that, and then we grilled it up, and I pulled out. I mean, it's a turkey heart, so it's you got about 4 bites out of it. But so I sliced it up and I grilled it and some garlic butter, and they each got a little slice of turkey heart, and I think we made turkey pozole out of the Meat Eater cookbook with that.
Oh, nice.
That was really tasty. That was really tasty.
And a wild turkey is night and day from a store-bought turkey.
Oh, yeah.
It's crazy when you go to somebody's house and they have a store-bought turkey, and you're just everything tastes the same. Every part of the turkey tastes the same. Even dark meat, light meat, everything's just kind of. It tastes like the seasoning that they put on it. Not the turkey, but the wild turkey just adds such a good flavor to it. I would maybe pick a duck over a turkey most of the time. I just love duck.
See, I haven't actually eaten duck yet.
Absolutely, smoked. Anyway.
I've only ever had it as jerky. I've had Canada goose and I've had duck as jerky, but I've never actually just had duck.
Yeah.
Which I think I need to give that a try.
Yeah, I used to do Michigan I did Michigan hunts for like 8 years. I'd go out there, deer hunt. I'd go to the UP, fish. And then I did a lot of duck hunting, just tons. And I would bring back deer, but I would almost never bring back duck because I would literally, being there for 10 days, shoot, handful of ducks, and I was eating them every day. I mean, it was literally, I would eat 2 full ducks sometimes.
Damn.
I would throw them in the smoker.
Well, and ducks are normally, those are normally a possession limit, aren't they? Like, it's not
depends, yeah, it depends on where you were.
It depends on the state, but like...
You can usually have like 2 days of the possession too. It's like you can have in your possession whatever the limit is for 2 days. Like, so, it's technically if you're out there camping or you never came back home, you have it or whatever. But in reality, it's like there were so many ducks on the property, my buddy's property out there, that you would, while you're out doing whatever you're doing, you'd see, a few ducks, you'd run over there, kind of like what you did, but I just kind of run over there with a canoe. I'd like slide into these tules. I would just jam it in there as fast as I could. It was like clockwork, which was crazy because he had these neighbors that used to hunt ducks with like AK-47s, like full automatic weapons. So I was always trying to get like only the ducks that flew a certain direction, because if they were too close to their house, like they would just light these things up. Like there was nothing left if they hit them, and they, it was like out of a movie. So I would like always get them like, there was a couple of times where I got a couple like probably a couple inches off the water. I mean, it just took off, and I was like, if it gets any higher, those guys are gonna swish cheese these things. But I would like I'd hit like 2, and then I would put them in the boat, and I would take it down the canal, and I'd get back to the house, and I would pluck them real quick, and get them all ready, and I'd just hang them. Yeah. Because I started hanging ducks, and it's not that hot. At the time it wasn't that hot, so you can hang a duck for a long time. But if you can you can cure a duck or hang it for a while, it turns into a whole different. Same as hanging a deer. I mean, it turns into a different animal.
I did a whole thing. I think it was with Hank Shaw. We talked about dry aging and curing and stuff like that, and that was a good episode. And I want to build a section for that. But that reminds me of kind of my Colorado elk hunt, because we saw a few elk. We didn't really get into them, but the whole time we're just plugging grouse after grouse after grouse, and we're eating them every night.
Grouse will follow you.
Oh yeah,
in Idaho, I was walking. The grouse kept following me. I was like tempted to shoot him, but I was like, if I shoot him, I'm going to mess up this whole situation.
I haven't been that lucky with the grouse in Montana. They're a lot jumpier in Montana. Like everywhere I've been in Montana.
Yeah.
But like Colorado, Idaho,
I've had them follow me multiple times.
So many other places, they're like the dumbest animal. I mean, what's the saying? If you got 5 grouse in a tree, you shoot them from top to bottom, you get 1. You shoot them from bottom to top, you get all 5.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember in Colorado, there's a bunch. They kind of, a ton of them would just fly in, and I've
seen them hide behind stuff that's smaller than their body.
Oh yeah.
Like I've seen them just put their head behind something. They'll put their head behind a bush, not thinking that the rest of their big body is just completely out there in the open.
Yeah. But I mean, I always carry a judo tip in my quiver, so I at least have one for some small game or a snack. And so I plug this one, and I just boom take him out, and there's maybe like 3 of them on a log and 2 in front of this log. And so I plug one on the log, one on the log flies off, the 2 in front fly off, and there's the other one stands there, and he legit looks around at the other ones, and he's like, "Where the hell are you guys going?" And then he turns and looks down at the one that is like dead on the ground behind the log, and he's just looking at him, and it's kind of this look like, "George,
you okay?
What are you doing, George?" And I'm like, crap, I didn't want to waste one of my broadheads, because it would have just jacked the broadhead behind it. I'm like, okay, well, I'll just walk up, collect my 1 grouse, call it a day. And I'm walking up, and it's looking at me. I'm still walking up, and I get from maybe 3 feet to this thing, at which point I'm looking for a heavy rock. I'm taking this sucker with me, and there's a rock. I grab the rock, and it finally flies away. But I'm like, geez, this thing is dumb as a sack of hammers.
Yeah, my first one, I hit with the quad. I literally, remember when I first got the Can-Am? I was in the Sawtooth, I think it was, in Idaho, and I come flying around the corner, and I see a moose up on the side of the hill. So I'm like, I probably should have stopped. Probably, I probably could have got a lot more hurt than what the birds did. But I mean, I came around this corner, little gravel road, almost like a little 2-track, And I look up at this moose, and I hear, do-do-do-do, and I hit 4 of those damn things. The axle hit them perfectly. I mean, just headshot, one after another. And I'm like, I thought I broke something. I didn't even know what it was. I stopped. It was, sun was going down. And I'm looking at this moose. I'm trying to get my binoculars out, just trying to look at it. And, sizable moose just sitting on the side of it, on the other side of the river, just up on the hill a little bit. But I hit, and I wasn't going that fast, but I rolled forward a little bit. I looked back, and there's these 4 grouse.
You expect to see parts on the ground, but
just dead, just headshots. So I was just like, all right, you load them up and go.
Oh my gosh!
I'd hunted chuckers before, and I had eaten chuckers before, so I was like, I didn't really. I was looking at them like they look like grouse, but I'm not even sure about because I was on waterfowl or any kind of upland bird or anything, and I took them the next couple days eating those. I do a lot of trout. I eat a lot of trout when I'm hunting in Idaho for some reason. Like I don't even break out a meal until like the 5th day. I'm like living off the land, I guess you'd say, mostly. But yeah, they were. It was like addicting. It was like I get why Randy will like give up an elk hunt.
It's one of those things too, especially like when you're out hunting and you've been eating Mountain House for like 3 days, you're exhausted, you've just been kicking your own ass, hiking all over the place, covering ground, and then you have that like first like cooked meat,
like real meat,
and like we did it on that hunt. We got to our next spot we were camping. We had we cleaned those grouse. We threw them in with, I probably told this story like 100 times on this podcast, but we threw them in with, we grilled them up, and I had like a bunch of spices. We'd taken llamas in. It was my buddy that ran the llamas. And so like I brought my little spice thing with me. We brought all the good cooking stuff and grilled them up. We threw it in with a Mountain House, like chicken and rice, and then we had Idaho and mashed potatoes, and we put that in there.
Still my favorite. I eat those at home all the time still.
Oh, yeah. And we did that, and it was like we made like a casserole with it almost.
Like shepherd's pie almost?
Oh, yeah. We ate that for like 2-3 days. We would we had a Ziploc bag, and we'd put it in a Ziploc bag and then like boil it in a Mountain House or in a jet boil to heat it back up. We'd sous vide it basically. Yeah. Oh, jeez. That was just, to this day, one of the top 3 meals I've ever had because it's like, It's contextually tasty.
See, I normally hold off as long as I can. I always take snares with me now. Like I said, the first day of camp, snares go out. I always get whatever tag I need to get or a license. It's usually pretty cheap to get, depending on the area. But
does that count as like a trapping license?
Yeah, it does.
So you've got to get.
I used to do it all the time, but I didn't realize. I didn't know, and I. I was buying a snare, and they're like, "You want the license too?" I'm like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
And then I had to start thinking back, like, "Oh, maybe I should have had that before. Maybe I just didn't know." Sorry, but you get really good at finding like these little trails and these little these holes that these animals make, like especially rabbits. I mean, they just make these little round kind of shapes, like holes, like
through the brush.
Through the brush, even through sage and everything, and you could just like, oh, that looks like a good spot. Every now and then you get something, once in a while. Like I got a fox in Idaho once.
Yeah,
that thing was mean as shit. I got him out of it. He probably was only in there for a while. He had his arm caught in it too, so it wasn't choking him. Like he was completely fine. It was like getting in a chokehold, but getting your arm in there. But when I finally got him out of it, it took a lot trying not to get bit and scratched and whatever. He like pranced off a little bit, and then he just started growling. I've never seen the fox so pissed off. He was pissed. But other than that, and I had a possum once. Everything else has been a rabbit. So but
I really want to get another fox because that was the first thing I ever took. It was in Arizona.
Oh, really?
I took that fox.
I took a fox with my Mazda once. Idaho. Thing was running. Came up from the side. Came out of this field, started running alongside of me, and went right under my tire.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, I took that fox. I was gonna get him. I was gonna get a full body mount done. Like I was really excited because that was like my first thing.
Was it a red fox or?
No, it was a gray fox.
Gray fox.
It was. She was pretty though, man. And it was wild. We couldn't. Couldn't figure out like. We saw she was bleeding out of her eyes, and I'm like, crap, the skull's ruined. That's super bummer. And it ended up going. It was with a shotgun. And so the pellet ended up going through her eye and out the mouth.
Okay.
And so it didn't damage the skull at all. It chipped one of the teeth, which was kind of cool. But then I ended up, that was when, it was in the freezer when my freezer went out, and I was like on vacation. My family was gone. I was out, and for it was like several days.
Yeah.
I lost most of my aoudad. I lost my fox. I lost most of my venison. I lost like gallons of bone broth.
Oh.
And it was just
painful.
I was so depressed. And like I probably could have at least saved like the skull on the fox or something, but it was just so nasty and rotten at that point. I was just like, it was all of the bags had like fully inflated, and it was just that sickly spoiled smell.
Worst feeling.
And and I still get nervous about, because the one that went out was my newer one. That was the wild thing. That was the one I never thought would go out. The one I keep expecting to go out is like my older one that I got for like $60. It was like molded over.
Because they don't make them like they used to.
This thing has been on. I put it in the back of the truck and would plug it into my power inverter and drive with it rather than buy dry ice. And I'd plug it in when I was driving, and I'd park somewhere, and I'd either use an extension cord and plug it into an outdoor outlet, or it'd be fine overnight most places. And that thing worked great. It was a lot cheaper. Running that was a lot cheaper than buying dry ice, but that thing is still humming strong. Got it for $60 from some dude in L.A. Like, I went out onto his balcony. It was like piled under a bunch of shit. He wanted $80 for it.
You talked him down to 60.
Or no, I think he wanted like $100 for it. And I offered him 80. He's like, yeah, that's good. Come on out. And we come out, and like this thing, you open it up, and it's just mold everywhere inside it. And I'm like, and I kind of look at him, and he's like, $60? I'm like, yeah.
$60 in a pressure washer.
Yeah, dude. There was so much bleach. So much bleach on that thing. But no, man, that's
cool.
That losing all that meat was rough, but I do want to get another fox. Like, just they're cool animals, and I'll admit that I want solely for my wall. I just want a fox on my wall, and I want to start. I was talking with Trent Marsh about this at SHOT Show. I want to start getting more coyotes, more foxes, more. I want to do some trapping, so I can teach myself to tan hide. So whether that's coons, whether that's possum, whatever.
Might as well start on coyotes. It'd probably be pretty easy.
Yeah,
get 5 or 6 of them and just start. Go that route.
I've got to get a better Fox Pro. My Fox Pro is like 15 years old at this point, and it was like, even back then, it was like the lowest end one you could get.
I've never like designated, like I've never gone out just coyote hunting, but I've had coyotes come in multiple. Okay, so remember we were both at Golden Voice, and we did that retreat out in near Borrego.
Yeah.
Was it Borrego Springs?
Borrego Springs.
Yeah, it was Borrego Springs. So I was on my way. I came out later because I had something else going on. I was just driving out there, and I called, I pulled over to the side of the road where all those cattle are.
Yeah.
Right where Renee crashed his car.
Oh, yeah.
When the power lines came down. And I called in so many coyotes just with a mouth call. They were just coming in. I got a coyote to come. I could have reached out and grabbed him and put him in the car. I mean, he was literally right at the bottom.
Well, that's the funny thing, because I have a bunch of mouth calls for coyotes, or hand calls, whatever you want to call them. I've got a bunch of those, but I kind of forget they're there. Because the Fox Pro I have, the area
it's easy, you just turn on.
The area my property's on, it's wide open, and so it's not like more closed in areas where you call for a little more quietly, and then you move 200 yards, call again, 200 yards, call again. This is like just wide open. You pick one spot, you call, and then you're done for the day. You don't really have other areas to move to.
They're either there or they're not.
Yeah, it's either you move to one side of the property or the other. But it's so open, they roam far enough. They're there, you can hear them, but you need a loud-ass call for that. And so my call just doesn't have the for that. And, I could probably buy some external speakers, but I just need to buy a better Fox Pro. But I forget I have those hand calls, and those hand calls will get that loud easy. Like, if I pump on those things...
You might get winded, but...
Yeah. But I forget I have, they're basically decoration at this point. I need to, actually practice on them for a little bit and use them.
My new thing this year and last year, calling mule deer in.
Really?
My last hunt, my Zion hunt, I called in handfuls. On scouting days, the whole migration like pattern, like where they were going, I turned that. They literally came, like they were all going through the same valley. They stopped, started going up and around this ridge and came right through like where I was. I mean, on the day that if I wouldn't have seen anything that morning of opening day, I would have probably pulled the calls out. I pulled in a ton of deer. Like, it's just a distress, like a distress call, like a fawn distress. It's a fawn in distress. But I had cow elk running in, like running, looking over hills. Like these cow elks were like looking over. They wouldn't come down the hill, but they were looking like, what the hell's going on? But I had does run almost right to me. And the thing is, when the does ran in, the bucks were like, what the fuck's going on? Yeah. And they came running right behind them.
I was going to say, you get those fawn distress calls, or like you start calling that fawn distress, those does are like, they're not horny anymore. They come tearing in.
Yeah. And then there was 3 bucks, totally by themselves on the other side of this creek. It was 2 creeks, and they had to go over like a ridge. They were pretty far away. They, in a full sprint, all 3 of them in a full sprint, came running over to see what was going on. And I was like, I have never seen that before. It was just something I wanted to try out, and I did. And I was thinking, like, if I do this too much, I'm going to have a bear come in probably. But it was
that's the thing with calling in.
It was amazing.
Yeah. That's the thing with calling at all. Like, if you're using
you're gonna get
cow calls.
You're going to get predators.
That's the one thing, dude, I'm really excited about. I got a buddy coming into town. He's never hunted before, and I'm taking him spring bear hunting.
Oh, nice.
He was supposed to originally come in January. We were going to go duck hunting, which a little easier intro, but he ended up having to push it back, and I'm like, well, we got spring bear. And I'm like, we could do spring turkey, but if we're going to do it, let's go shoot a bear. And so I'm super excited for spring bear season. The pressure's on for me a little bit because I want to make sure he goes in and at least has a good time. We see animals, so are you doing like a spot and stock, or are you putting bait? What is? We can't bait in Montana.
You can't bait. Okay, I keep thinking Idaho. You can though, yeah, right next door.
I think so. Yeah. I think, but actually, that may not be a bad idea. We can drive over to Idaho.
Yeah.
No, I'm gonna get cameras out, and we're gonna do like
do cameras there.
Say again?
Said Montana can still do cameras?
Yeah, we can do cameras. You can't effectively, it's worded a little unclearly, and I got to double check all the regs, but you effectively can't use them to hunt. So, like, I can't have a cell camera out and then, like, check it at the bottom of the trail and, like, decide to go to that camera.
So you're just using it to observe wildlife, basically.
Exactly. Like, I'm using it to scout, basically. Initially, like, you can't use it, like, effectively, like, the day you're hunting. Let's just call it that. Which, if they'd said that would be more clear. But to be safe, I'm just not going to, if I'm out in the field, I'm not pulling trail cam pictures. Yeah. But and I have to up myself on the regs again because they change. You know how they change. But I'm gonna get the cams out so I can use them to scout. Like I want to make sure he has a good time. This is his vacation. He doesn't take vacations, and the fact like he's coming up to hunt with me, that's a huge honor for me.
Yeah, that's cool.
Like he's a good buddy, and I want to shoot a bear too.
I mean, Montana's like spot and stock. Just going on a hike when I was in Bozeman. I was in Bozeman I was there for Ryan Lamper's thing, and like while I was there a couple days before it, I mean, just going up for a hike, I went up, probably saw 6 bears, 1 grizzly, but I mean, there's black bears everywhere.
Yeah,
I mean, it just seems like they're everywhere. Yeah. So this just seems to be all over the place. It's great. There's a lot of good spots to go spot and stock in that area. And I know that. And Idaho, like northern Idaho, like I have friends that live up there. They see bears constantly. Just constantly. As long as you don't get too thick, and then it's just the bears are there. Even California bears, even though they want to get rid of the hunting there.
Oh, another
the bears are there. They're everywhere. They're just so many. They're in everybody's pool. They're just everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
They're there.
Well, you see all these videos online, now about bears coming in, grabbing people's dogs now, and
oh yeah. It's just a bear being a bear.
But no, bear populations are in danger, Samson. Didn't you know that?
No, they're not. Oh, don't get me started on that.
Oh,
this
man.
expo is already starting to rub me the wrong way. So I might as well just come out and say it so I can vent a little bit. So, like, coming in this morning, so that, everything was kind of slow and everything coming in, just the employees, the people that work for, they're not part of our industry.
They work for the center.
They work here, and they're just like, oh, those poor animals. Or there's a bunch of, it's just a room full of dead animals. They just don't understand, like, the conservation part of it, or the fact that, like, the bear was a big topic for one lady, and she just doesn't understand, like, how many deer that bear probably is, deer and calves and everything else that they take out. Most people don't understand a bear is a meat predator, like, a lot of them. And if they knew how they did it, I mean, that would probably be, if they're mad at baby killers, that would be the number one baby killer, really. But, it's them just being them. But, and then just talk to a biologist for 5 minutes, lady.
Oh, yeah.
That's all you got to know is understand that, like, we don't just wipe out animals. I mean, if we did what they thought we did, there wouldn't be any animals left. The fact that we put more animals here than anybody else, like, we brought elk back from damn near extinction.
Elk, pronghorn, whitetail. Like, you can't drive 10 feet without hitting a whitetail deer on the East Coast.
Yeah.
Wood ducks, wild turkey. Yep. I mean, the list goes
it's a big list.
On and on and on.
But they only worry about that one, that one animal.
When somebody told me one time, and it just makes the mindset clear, and it makes a lot of sense. The, like, animal rights activists, and hunters, we're both passionate about animals. We both have that in common. But the difference is, us as hunters, we are passionate about the species.
Yeah.
The animal rights activists are passionate about that specific animal right there. It's like the difference of, I was getting into it with someone on Instagram or TikTok or something, and she's like, oh, blah, blah, blah. We're all part of a shared consciousness and this and that, and how dare you kill animals, and you better not go out at night anymore, and this and that. I'm like, and I go, it was on a buddy's page, and I responded to a comment, and, just same thing I say to everyone. I'm like, listen, this is what hunters do. What do you actually do other than bitch on? Do you actually do any hands-on conservation work and this and that? And she was like, well, I volunteer for an animal rescue, and I'm planning on buying land and starting my own, like, animal. I'm like, okay. My response was, okay, like, how much wildlife habitat have you restored? So what you're going to do is destroy more habitat in order to build cages to put these animals in to save one specific animal. You're going to destroy habitat for countless other animals. That's your plan. That really, and it just illustrates, like, that specific animal is important to me, not the species. That specific animal.
Well, here's your animal. Go away.
Yeah.
Like, here, take this one animal with you.
Go put it in your backyard
and go start your whatever you're going to start. Yeah.
Here, I will not shoot that black bear. You go take it. Yeah. You keep it in your backyard as a pet. See how your dogs agree with it, and I'll go take care of the rest.
Well, I mean, it's like when we were talking to Ryan Lampers earlier, and we were talking about just. Him and I were talking about a lot of stuff before he walked up, but, just the fact that it's just that the education's just not there, And then I firmly believe that your focus as a hunter or even, an outdoorsman, like putting any effort towards, like, anti-hunters is a waste of time. You're never going to change their mind. They're entitled to their opinion, just like anybody else, but you're not going to change their mind. So what's the point of that? Between hunters and and anti-hunters, not non-hunters, but anti-hunters, we're probably 10% of the population. That 90% are people they don't really have an opinion until they're swayed a certain direction. So, there's been a lot of stuff going on in the media lately talking about, how we present ourselves, everything else. That there's a lot of validity to that because those people don't know. It's the same thing as the people that work in this building. They are normal. They are the normal. They're the 90% that didn't have an opinion until they walked in. And maybe a stuffed bear gave them, now it might give them an opinion one way or the other. Her just seeing a bear stuffed, she's like, that poor bear. But maybe 5 minutes later, somebody walks by and explains to her like how conservation works and how that bear was taken out because there was too many of them. They were killing each other, whatever it may be. But that's normally the case because I know that tags aren't that easy to get in some areas now because the population has gone down. So it's not like we're just going on a killing spree. But if people were educated, that 90% gets educated, then it would sway. It would sway in our favor a lot more than it does. And it doesn't. Yeah. I mean, we are constantly getting, as a whole, we are getting our butts kicked because of multiple things. Like that opinion or, the guy riding around in, city with the deer in the back of his truck, even though I haven't seen that.
I don't think that.
No, but I'm sure it happens because people talk about it, but I haven't seen it. I'm sure it happens, but I guess they're just trying to, say that mentality. Or the guys that are like, they got a, bunch of beer cans in the back and they're shooting from the vehicle. I have seen that. Not on the West Coast really too much, but I have seen, and I can see how people portray that. But, anytime a hunter is in a Disney movie, he's a bad guy.
Yeah.
Or anytime, in a lot of movies, the hunter is the bad. So people are just being swayed. And the thing is the people that are watching that and they're voting for, something comes up like, let's not hunt bears. And like, yeah, save the, we're saying, okay, there's a conservation and everything else. All the anti-hunter has to do is put a picture of some Disney character that's a bear and be like, save the bears, and boom, they got them. So it's, you have to be almost, our marketing has to be a lot better, and the way we go about it needs to be a lot better.
What we were talking about earlier is we're really great at sniffing each other's buttholes,
telling a lot of people sit on their hands.
Wow, your farts smell like roses.
Exactly.
It's like we talk to each other.
Everybody wants to come here to an expo and size each other up on how far they can shoot or what tag they drew or how big their animal was, but no one ever really wants to size up the non-hunter or even just spend that effort on just educating a non-hunter. Like you're educating a non-hunter by having a non-hunter come up and you're taking them hunting. Yep. Like you're introducing, there should be a goal. Introduce one person a year, at least, a minimum, and get them into hunting. Or just at least get them to understand it. There's a lot of people that, we talked about that too earlier. We're talking about how I used to share an office with, not a vegan, a super vegan, like somebody that was, the biggest, we call them the biggest vegan in Los Angeles.
Is it? Are we talking about Lemon?
Yeah.
See, I never knew he was a vegan, and because he was okay. So I think I bitched to you about it over text one time because, he and I were Facebook friends. He and I always got along very well.
Yeah.
Like, he and I were great buddies. And then he posted something about that Oregon hunter that had gotten killed. He had taken not a great shot on an elk, and he went and tracked it, and then the elk gored him to death, and then the elk died too.
Yeah.
And he had posted up on Facebook, he's like, oh, good.
Yeah.
Something like that.
He gets.
And that's what he is, something like that. And I responded, and I was like, "What do you mean by good?" He's like, "Oh, people that do that kind of data." I'm like, "So what? You think I deserve to die?" And then of course all his little Facebook friends and his hippie Facebook friends come in, and I let that one go after a while because I was like, I realized
it's the same thing. It's like you can only do so much.
Because I went through and I'm like, hey, listen, this is how it works and this is what he does. And I'm like, you're acting like this guy is a villain for doing this, but he's done more for wildlife. And then their response is, oh, nice internet research and da-da-da-da-da. Oh, look, I pasted a bunch of irrelevant facts from the internet. And this, you don't belong in the woods and this and that. And
well, that's the part. It's like it doesn't matter how much data you have behind it. When you get to that level of person, it just let it go.
Yeah, I was really tempted. One of the people talking crap was she was a full on. You could tell she was educated by the world kind of person. She had 2 kids and they were all surfers, and she was the one like talking a lot of crap about like, oh, you don't belong in the woods. Like, there's lots of ways to die. I was like this close to being like, okay, well, when one of your children gets pulled down by a fucking shark and gets his leg chomped off, I'm going to call you up and I'm going to laugh at your ass because because you don't belong in the ocean. I was that tempted to write something like that, and that's when I just let it go because that's when it devolves into very poor decisions. But I think it was like a month later I just removed him because he started hopping on my posts then and talking like
and that's the other thing is
shit.
Like they're going to put that much effort in it, like really,
Yeah.
I've never really let, if somebody has an opinion about it, I have had people completely like, I don't like you because you're hunting. I'm like, cool. You know, that's, well, I mean, it's your opinion. I get that. And you do what you do. I do what I do. You know, and I'm not even going to judge. I don't care what you do. I'm not going to judge you for golfing or whatever it is. Yeah. You know, if you really care about animals, like tear your house down, build some tree, you know, plant some trees and go live somewhere else. Like habitat is taking out more animals than lack of habitat is taking out more animals than anything else. So quit building a bunch of, you know, quit building homes. Go, you know, don't stop using, you know, concrete.
Yep.
You know, and no one wants to do, you know, that's the whole thing is like, oh, I'm not going to give up. You know, we knew a lot of people in Hollywood and LA and everything else, and they are like, you know, they consider themselves animal activists, but then they go back to their big giant mansion where they have, where their lawn guys, you know, killing gophers and killing all kinds of, any animal that's on my property, get rid of, but save those other animals.
We've been to a lot of those guys' houses, and they are not like, this is not like somebody that just bought a condo in a building in the middle of a city. No, this is like a sprawling manse out in the middle of like the wilderness, like up on a hill,
well,
you know, that's destroyed.
We know a couple that complain about hunting and have bear rugs in their house. Yeah, so that, like there's a few that are I thought was fairly amusing that, you know, I'm like, is this fake? No, it's real. And I'm just dumbfounded, like thinking like, all those times you're giving me a hard time about, you know, those poor animals. Jeez. You have a bear rug in your house, which I would take gladly because it's a pretty awesome bear rug.
Well, man, so say whatever, you're working a job. And, you know, some guy sitting across the table from you notices you're wearing a camo puffy. And, you know, he approaches you in your office and says, hey, because that's such a far-off situation that could never happen. You know, he comes up to you and says, hey, man, you know, like, I've always kind of wanted to hunt, but I didn't grow up with it. I don't, like, know anyone that does it. Like, I don't know. It's like there's a lot to learn. It's a little intimidating. I don't know if it's for me. What should I do? Like, what kind of advice would you give someone like that, or words of wisdom?
So, and I've had this. I mean, obviously, I've had this happen, but I have this happen a lot, and I don't know what it is. And sometimes it's people have found me, and maybe it's because, you know, where we used to live. You don't live anymore, but where we used to live, there, you know, hunters were few and far between. There's a lot of hunters in California, but in Southern California, in the music industry, in the festival world, not a lot. You know, probably a handful. It's weird when you do a country show and you have a camp. You know, one of the artists comes in, he has a Kuyu wrapped trailer, and they don't understand what that means. They just think it's funny, you know, some funny pattern. And we were like, we get excited.
Good old John Party.
Yeah, exactly, right?
That dude's tall.
Yeah. Or I have to take away all Guy Fieri's ammo from his vehicle, you know, when he came in. So kind of thing, give it back to him later. And then find out that all the, you know, all the meat came from Texas, from the hunt he came on the way there. But you know, I normally get like a feel, like how serious are they? You know, or is this something that they're just kind of feeling the waters, or it's something they're really, really going to do? And somebody that's like kind of on the fence, send them some sites and podcasts. I did that with you as well. But the ones that are like, I know I want to do this, I just don't know where to start. The first thing I do is like hunter safety. I just start there because they're going to need it anyway. Like just start there, and that's going to get you used to, you know, at least you get to the first grade of firearm. That's probably about it, but at least you kind of get a feel, and and if they put that kind of effort, because you got to do the class, and then you got to show up.
Well, if they actually take the time to do that, that shows you a lot.
So when they come back from there, then we start looking at like, okay, you know, and I don't hide anything. I literally lay it out. I'll even lay out my hunt plans. I'm like, look, like, you know, there's some extremes. There's different ways you can go about this. There's the, I don't know what I'm doing, DIY. I'm going to do it on a budget and go as cheap as possible. I'm going to borrow everything that I need. I mean, that, which is a possibility. There's guided, there's self-guided, there's, you know, I go through everything. I've literally broken it all down and say, like, how far do you want to take this? Or is there a particular, you know, is there why? You know, because usually the why is more than anything else. Sometimes they're like, well, you know, my buddy went deer hunting and he came back. I thought that was cool. I you know, it tastes good. You know, sometimes it's about the meat. Sometimes it's, you know, I think everybody is kind of a trophy hunter in their mind of like, there's 2 bucks standing there. One's got a big rack. The one with the big rack usually gets shot. In my case, one the biggest chest. Depends on how big they are. Usually gets shot. Can't eat the antlers, so that kind of thing. But it's if they get past that point of getting their hunter safety, and then we just start looking, like normally starting wherever their home state is. Hunt at home is cheap. You don't have to pay as much, and then start looking at maybe some over the counter, even though there's not really a lot of over the counter anymore. But and then weapon. That's the other thing, is because there's some people that are terrified of a firearm. They want to go hunting, and they're like, I don't know if I could shoot a gun. I've had a few. I've taken a few to the range.
Yep.
And then they're, a firearm is too loud and aggressive, and a bow is way too technical for them. And I'm like, well, you got to figure something out. You can't just throw a rock at them. So, we kind of go through that. But a lot of people have, they've picked up a rifle, and they've, or they borrow a rifle. So, normally what it is like, we're all research junkies. If we really admit it. I think that, during tags and draws and everything, that season's just as exciting as actually going on the hunt sometimes. So getting them involved in that, even, finding out, like, here's what I'm doing, look at this, and literally just lay it out. Like, this costs this much, this, this, if you get a tag, or you get a license and you get a tag and you got to pay, a couple extra fees, this is how much it is to hunt an elk here. It's like $1,700 here, it's $800 here, and every year it changes and varies, and then the draw, it's like a lotto. Once you explain it to people, and you're going to get people that will only go so far. Each person you talk to is like, I'm all in. Whoa, wait a minute, that's way too much. I can't do that. Mm-hmm. Or some people they're down to do the tag, or even some people are down to even pay money to like get, something guided, or even drop camped, or getting somebody to scout for them, and pay that a couple of $1,000, because they know that that's going to jump them forward a little bit. But then they can borrow gear. It just depends. I mean, you start with a kind of a number. I always tell people, start with a number, double it, and then you'll be close. That's whatever your drop dead. This is your minimum budget, or what you think in your mind what it's going to be. Start and double it, and then you're going to be at the bottom.
Yeah.
Of what it really, really costs. And I don't expect people to go out and buy like Sitka Kuyu, a Kafaru pack, and, some crispy boots right off the bat. You can get away with a lot of, all right, go with somebody. I mean, I go on hunts all the time with people, still to this day. I was like, people get a tag, I'm like, I'll go with you. It's fun. You get your reps in. That's the other thing, is like, you get time behind the glass and you learn things. I mean, there's times where that benefited your next hunt more than, you finding a deer for them. Especially like coos deer hunting, or some type of deer hunting where you're like trying to spot these animals, and you got like 4 or 5 of you, and then it's fun. You have buddies hanging out at camp or whatever. But group camps are a big thing too. I think that you get a tag somewhere, maybe it's a cow hunt or a spike hunt. Like, especially, you can get not even a non-resident can get a spike. You can get a spike hunt here in Utah every year still.
Yeah.
And there's people that have these big camps, and they just bring the whole families up, and maybe 3 people have a tag. There's like 15 people there. So, that gets people involved, because especially like, successful or not, then they understand it. You come back, you didn't get anything, and it's not a big deal. You're like, learn stuff. Then they're not so bummed when they don't, because you're going to eat more tags than you do elk. That's just a way of life. No one's really that lucky. But I usually just lay it out for them. But I think the key is to find out like the why. Like, what's the reason why you want to do this? You have these like CrossFitters that are just like, I need the meat. They're crazy. They're like, I need lean protein. I heard that this is the way to do it. I'm like, well, technically you could go buy a cow too.
Yeah.
Do you really want to go out and do this, kind of thing? Or you have the Joe Rogan, just watching like Joe Rogan, or, just certain people from 0.0 that went out hunting with, the Vanillas, getting their feet wet kind of thing. Like, they wanted not only the experience, people talk about, why do you hunt? Like, I hunt for the hunt. I really, like, it really comes down to, like, it took me years to figure that out. It's like, do I hunt for the meat? Yeah, but I could go buy, if it was solely about meat, I could just go buy meat. I mean, I could go to a elk farm somewhere and buy meat. Do I do it because I'm just some crazy psychopathic killer and like to shoot things? Like, yeah, partially that too. I probably check all the boxes. So technically, all those together is the hunt.
Yeah.
Like I do it for the pursuit, the chase, trying to outwit another animal. You know, if I could hunt people, I probably would. I mean, I just, you know, I have this whole theory on cannibalism being like the solver of like world overpopulation and, you know, world hunger at the same time. We could save that for another podcast.
That'll definitely be another podcast, I'm sure.
But you know, but that's the thing is you gotta. Some people don't know. I mean, people are like, well, I would just want to try this, or I want to go. Those are the people you just like. You know what? Here's the dates for my hunt. Jump in the truck, let's go.
Yeah.
You know, just come with. You've ever been camping before? And some of them, they haven't, you know, so you're just like, all right. But I mean, all of us have extra gear. We have extra, you know, I have tents, and now the backpacks are starting to stack up and, you know, everything. I come to this show, and it's dangerous. You know, I come in and buy stuff I don't even need, but ends up being beneficial for them. You know, usually what I tell them is like, get a pair of boots that actually fit you and start wearing them now. I did that to you. You wore your boots to the office.
Oh, yeah.
I wear these boots every day. I wear Crispies every single day.
Are those the Colorados?
Yeah. I have 5 pairs of these things that I need to get. Some of them resold, actually. But
I think I'm at 5 pairs. My Laponias are just...
Those are your first?
They're beyond rescues. No, my first were the
Nevadas?
the
guides. Oh, that's right.
I got the Ford F350.
Right. Jesus.
And then I got the Laponias.
Those are big boots.
Yeah, I got the guides, the Laponias. I got the crossovers, which I'm honestly not a huge fan of.
Yeah.
And I've got the Colorados, which I've been enjoying the Colorados. They just don't break in as quick as the leather ones do.
They have the heel lock on those, right? The heels, the lock where it locks in your heel.
Yeah.
Pretty sure it does.
Yeah.
I mean that by far separates Crispy from every other boot that I've tried. Is the fact that heel just kind of locks in.
Yeah.
So it's like instantly, like just locks it in. Especially if you tie your boots right, you just don't get any heel rub at all. I mean, I never have any problem with heel rub. With other boots, I before that I was like doing like Loa Tibets for a while, and if they even started to come loose, your heel started sliding all over the place, and then you have like sock liners and you're duct taping the back of your heel and everything else. But I always start people with like their feet more than anything else, because like if they're just going to go with, I mean, they don't really need to train with a pack as much. Like they just got to get their cardio up maybe a little bit, and they're going to get their butt kicked no matter what. I mean, they can do the heavy pack training if they want to go up and down the hill, but they might wear themselves out so much and psych themselves out to the point where they don't even want to go anymore. So just get some boots that fit, and we'll, you know, borrow, find, rent, steal, whatever we need to do to get you, you know, what you need out there. And the thing is like, I've had people that just go out scouting, and they just sit behind the glass. And then it's funny because you'll get that one person not in a million years you think they'd ever find anything. And they're like, oh, there's a deer. Oh, there's a deer. I'm like, how? And they just, you know, maybe they have a knack for it kind of thing. So I think that's just, you know, that's how you start. Sitting at home trying to collect, you know, every piece of high-end gear, and I'm not going until that happens, and I need to have the best tag ever. And you're like, it's like people that are just, you know, collecting points and not hunting. Like once you get that coveted tag that you've been waiting 15 years for, you have zero hunts under your belt, what's the point? You know, you're just going to go out there and not know, get all the mistakes done on the cheap tags, over-the-counter stuff or whatever. Get all the, you know, then when the real tag comes in, you're ready to go. You're like, you're ready. And it just boggles my mind that people, you know, they just don't do that. But a lot of I think that's the easiest way to ease somebody into it, because they don't know what they don't know. They know the end result. They know, I want to hunt, I want an animal. They don't know anything that happens in between. Yeah. You know, and they don't understand even like knowing their weapon, practicing with it, knowing their gear, you know, not just like knowing your pack, but knowing like how to fix stuff when you get out there and on everything. Just we're constantly tweaking with everything when we're in the field and getting everything done anyway. It's like they're not going to know any different. They're just going to set their pack down, and if something goes wrong, they're just going to go home. You know, that's usually what it is. But you got to know how to get around road systems, how to draw. You know, you got to know that like 5 of your first picks on your roads probably going to be shut down or closed gates that you just wasted a half a tank of gas to get to. So, you know, if you follow somebody along and they get to see that and observe it, that's the next level. Like they go through and they see all that, success or not, they're going to decide like, I get why you do this, and I get it. That's fun. It's a challenge. Don't always get some, but I'm down for that. That's what I was looking for. You get the other people are like, you know what? I thought I wanted to do this. Oh, hell no. It's not happening. Like, you can bring some meat over when you get done.
Yeah.
And that's cool. And that's cool, too. But at least now you have a person that, like, they understand, respect what it takes.
Mm-hmm.
And they've already given in, like, that's not for them. It's too much for them. But when it comes down to, voting the right direction or something comes up, that
they're going to understand
that's a non-hunting ally that you have. That that it comes down to, and they're just gonna, maybe they'll come around later on, or maybe there's something else. Like you might, everybody wants to go on elk hunt right off the bat. I remember growing up that like when you started with a 22 and you went rabbit hunting, and then you worked your way up to maybe a shotgun, and you duck hunted and small animals, and then you worked into deer, and then you worked into bigger animals, and it's like nowadays it's like you have kids that are like, going elk hunting. What are you talking about? I'm a sheep hunt. That's what they want to draw a sheep tag. They've never been on a hunt in their life. So it's just a little bit different mentality. And I think we talk about, there's not enough hunters. The hunter recruitment is going down, but we can't get enough tags, which means that there's more hunters. So I think that instead of everybody going into hunting and starting at the ground level and working their way up, giving time for all that to kind of come to fruition as far as like them getting a tag, they're going straight into the draws. They're going straight
skipping straight to the top.
They're skipping straight to the top, and it's just not what it used to be. It used to be people used to get a hunting license. A lot of people, they would just get it like it was I might need this, or it was for hunt camp because they just did it every year. And they just they lived in Michigan. They're like, well, time to get a hunting license. They might not even go, but that money went into conservation and everything else. Now it's like, I'm not buying it unless I get a tag. I'm not gonna, or if I'm only buying points and I know I can't draw, like I'm not gonna buy a hunting license. Like that's making that number going down, and that's hurting, in the long run. I mean, luckily we have like, Mule Deal Foundation and, all these different people kind of putting money in, buying property and doing things. That's helpful, but if that wasn't there, when we were on our own, we'd be kind of screwed. That's the whole thing. Is we would be, everybody's kind of for themselves. We talked about earlier, like we'll size each other up at a hunt show, but then when it comes to like voicing and saying something to the public, we just don't. Or very few do. So, but yeah, it's a challenge, but it's something like as I get older, I get more and more like. I am turning into Randy Newberg, I think. I'm getting to the point where I want to pick fights. I'm choosing my fights, but I definitely want to pick some more fights. I literally want to fight for. I'm fighting for my sons to be able to hunt when they get to that age. That's where it comes down to. And if I don't do it, no one else does it, then it's going to be gone. It'll just be gone. So it's where I'm at right now.
Awesome, man. Well, I'm glad we finally got to. We've kind of been talking about this for like the past 3 years.
Right? Yeah, we constantly there's been times where you're like, you're doing a podcast with somebody, and my wife and I will walk by, and then we won't see each other for the rest of the day.
Yeah,
and then the next day we'll see each other, like, oh yeah, maybe later, and then
That's why this time, the second I saw you, I'm like, we are going to record this podcast today.
It's funny because I left the building like 3 times from the time you're like, okay, like maybe between this time and this time, and then like my pack was full, I had all this crap I had to go. I literally instead of taking the car out of parking, I jumped on one of these rental scooters and I bolted down to the hotel, which is like 5 blocks away, and I I emptied everything out and I came back. And then when I came back, I had to do something else, and but it worked out. That worked out.
I'm glad, definitely glad we got it done.
You didn't have power cord.
Then didn't have the power cord. Thankful to Guy Duplancher.
Nice.
Duplancher of Western Contours for the 4 AAAs. So go give him some love too. But yeah, man. Good, we did it.
It's cool. Cool catching up.
All right, y'all, that'll do it for this episode of The Wild Initiative. Check out the show notes page at thewildinitiative.com. Get links to everything we talked about in today's episode. That'll do it for this week. Looking forward to next time, but until then, I hope this episode inspired you to get involved, get outdoors, and plan your initiative for the wild.
Thank you for listening to The Wild Initiative. Please take a moment to leave a rating and review on iTunes or Stitcher, and head on over to thewildinitiative.com to get show notes, check out the blog, gear discounts, other podcasts from the Wild Initiative family, and more.